Good evening. I'm Morgan Freeman. As a Mississippian with roots in the Delta, I know too well the issues that the Mississippi Center for Justice is tackling. It's my pleasure to congratulate the Center on its 10th anniversary and to tell you something of its remarkable accomplishments. The story of social justice in Mississippi is inspired by heroes who lived and died for equality. Their struggles and achievements created hope for people too long disenfranchised by Jim Crow laws. But at the turn of the 21st century, Mississippians still faced deep barriers to racial and economic justice. "10 years ago, a new generation of homegrown heroes stepped forward. Their goal? To bring renewed energy to eliminating discrimination and apply new tactics to the unfinished business of the civil rights movement. Their task? To find long-term solutions to pervasive systemic issues of disparity and racism. The financial generosity of early donors enabled a small group of lawyers and activists to launch a legal advocacy initiative they called the Mississippi Center for Justice. They cut the ribbon on their first home in Jackson on the 40th anniversary of Medgar Evers' assassination and moved quickly into action. With forceful direction from the board and a staff of 2, the center was ready to advance from vision to reality. From the beginning, the center developed partnerships with those needing help and with local leaders, employers, government agencies, and others. This was a different model, one that listens and works with residents, helping them find practical solutions to deeply rooted problems. The center successfully fought a plan to eliminate Medicaid coverage for the elderly and disabled and advanced juvenile justice reform. But unprecedented challenges were about to confront the 2-year-old center. Hurricane Katrina dealt a deadly blow to the Gulf Coast. Survivors faced immediate legal needs. Oversight to ensure their recovery was crucial. The center quickly opened an office in Biloxi. From all over the state and nation, volunteer law students and pro bono lawyers rushed to the Gulf Coast to help.
With all of the housing stock destroyed, there was enormous pressure on the rental market, and so every landlord that could tried to evict.
To be evicted in Mississippi at this time is not to be put to just the hardship of transporting your possessions to another apartment. There is no place to go.
I myself personally feel if we didn't have the Mississippi Center for Justice on our side, we would be been evicted months ago.
5 years after the hurricane, the center was still fighting for equity in housing assistance. 5,000 families continued to wait for affordable, permanent places to live. Sometimes, the culprits of unjust practices were those mandated to help: local, state, and federal governments. The center was on the case.
Today, I am pleased to stand with Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour and U.S. HUD Secretary Sean Donovan, who will announce a set of measures to restore housing for Mississippians who fell through the cracks or were left out by the previous programs.
Working together with the Mississippi Center for Justice, which has done so much to fight for fairness on behalf of the low-income families of this state, and with the state government itself, we reached an agreement that would help extend state and federal resources to Mississippians who desperately needed our help.
While Hurricane Katrina victims were still rebuilding their lives, a man-made disaster wreaked environmental and human havoc on the Gulf Coast.
The oil disaster has damaged thousands of people and their livelihoods and their families and so forth. But there is a claims process that has been put in place to try to remedy that.
With lessons from Katrina in mind, the center convened a multi-state legal consortium to help people navigate the claims process and understand their rights. Through this coalition, the center assisted more than 10,000 people.
The Mississippi Center for Justice has been a nice benefit to me. For one, I don't have the money to obtain an attorney myself. I didn't know really where to go. I kept getting a runaround.
By ensuring responsive and fair settlements, the center enabled working people to provide for their families until they could return to their jobs. Katrina and the oil disaster taught the center what was needed to make large-scale change. They expanded their base of committed partners exponentially and built a record of victories under the most demanding circumstances. Now they were prepared to turn their attention to the region of the state with the most deeply embedded impediments to social justice, the Mississippi Delta.
The Mississippi Delta is very embedded in a long-standing history of racism that manifests in unequal resources along education opportunities, employment opportunities, housing, and access to health care.
Hundreds of public housing tenants in several Delta counties asked the center for help with an unwarranted 300% rent hike and evictions from neglected apartments.
We gathered as many tenants as wanted to come and talked to them about what their choices were. We decided to file suit against the Housing Authority for improperly raising the rent.
When we started working with the Mississippi Center for Justice, we started getting more response from South Delta.
The lawsuit resulted in lower rents, better maintenance services, and a federal criminal conviction of the Housing Authority director. The Senate opened an office in Indianola in 2011 to expand its work in the Delta and provide sustained support for access to quality education and health care. Sometimes this meant helping one person at a time, such as this child with an emotional disability. Her behavior had led to many paddlings and suspensions, a precursor to failing and dropping out.
I made numerous calls that made dead ends. But I finally got to the Mississippi Center for Justice.
Once I contacted the school district, and of course I immediately provided them a copy of the program that she was under in Connecticut, as well as a doctor's report that Ms. Jones provided me, outlining what her disability was. They immediately gave the child services and scheduled a meeting with both the parent and the child.
The Delta has an alarmingly high rate of HIV/AIDS, and those with the virus are often discriminated against.
The Center for Justice has received numerous complaints of dental providers, even doctors themselves, turning HIV-positive people away at the door simply because they don't want to be associated with someone who has HIV.
The center has created a medical-legal partnership in which doctors work cooperatively with lawyers to make sure that people get the rights and care they are entitled to.
It will eliminate some of the illegal practices that have been taking place with housing and rights, employment. To have the Center for Justice here in the Delta means we have help.
Across the state, predatory lending has spread quickly in low-income communities. Pawn shops, check cashers, and payday lenders have spiraled out of control. Payday lending is the most insidious of financing methods, with annual percentage rates here topping 500%. When a short-term loan comes due, the borrower often has to take out another loan to pay it off, falling deeper in debt with each new loan, trapped like a sharecropper of another era. Along with seeking legislative regulation of payday lending, the center works with banks and credit unions to create fair and accessible loans.
Started a Credit Plus product. We were looking for a partner to actually give us more information on payday loan companies, and Mississippi Center for Justice helped put this product in place.
Imagine what Mississippi would be like when you have more people relying on banks and credit unions for consumer loans than they do predatory lenders. We deserve better than predatory lending.
The Mississippi Center for Justice, with support from the Clinton Global Initiative, is launching a bold statewide approach to address this issue. The New Roots Credit Partnership.
Our commitment to action seeks to loosen the stranglehold of predatory lending in Mississippi through offering fair lending alternatives. So we're seeking to recruit employers to partner with mainstream financial institutions to offer both fair lending products as alternatives and support services such as financial literacy training.
Each year, the Center honors heroes who have helped to build the road to racial and economic justice in Mississippi. These are the people who have shown the way, who have kept hope alive. When the Center was founded, the small but optimistic staff and board carried the dreams of these heroes and upped the ante. They challenged themselves to imagine Mississippi as the social justice state. Not a fantasy, but a bold aspiration. In 10 years, the Center has forged a blend of legal action, policy reform, and community empowerment. The Center is a regional and national leader now, helping others here and overseas in crisis, sharing its disaster recovery know-how to ensure that resources are fairly distributed. As the Center enters its second decade, the dream of racial and economic justice persists, as do many of the obstacles that bar the way. Always optimistic, the staff and board understand the challenges but hold fast to the prospect of success. By proving that it can be done in Mississippi, the Center and the new generation of heroes stand ready to show the rest of the country what equal opportunity and justice really look like.